Do you want to know how the hips work in the golf swing? You've looked at your golf swing on video and you notice your hips are all over the place. They may be sliding too far this way, or they're coming up on the downswing, and you're really not too sure what the correct way, how they should be working. In this next video, I'm going to show you in detail how the hips work in the golf swing to help you become a much more consistent golfer. So stick around, I'll see you soon. Hey, it's Troy from Hitting It Solid here. In this video, I'm going to show you how the hips work in the golf swing. So, as per in the intro, if you've looked at your golf swing on video, or you've had a friend even look at your video of your swing, and just notice while you're playing that your hips seem to move too far, maybe laterally this way or this way. Even in the downswing, you're finding they're moving all over the place. Well, in this video, hopefully I'm going to clear that up. I'm going to go into a bit of detail on the backswing, how the hips work, also on the downswing, and hopefully get that sorted out for you. So before we get started, don't forget to like this video and consider subscribing to the channel. More subscribers I get here helps me grow the channel and keep on producing golf content like this. So the hips in the golf swing, well, commonly, and I'm going to show you a couple of different examples what golfers are doing wrong with their hips. So from down the line, if I'm looking at my target line down this way here, one of the most common problems with the hips in the golf swing, this is specifically obviously the downswing, is what's called early extension. Now, I've talked about this many times on the channel, but it's such an important subject. And specifically what I mean by that is what the hips do in the downswing, which causes a lot of issues. So if we go to the top of our backswing, where a lot of golfers go wrong, now if we've done a fairly good backswing, our belt buckle should be roughly pointing down to the ground and roughly where we were at setup. Now, where a lot of golfers go wrong, on their downswing, instead of staying down, they lift up, and we'll see their belt buckle be pointing right out this way. They'll stand up, so instead of staying down, they'll stand up. And what that has a lot of effect on a lot of other things we do here. As soon as you stand up on your downswing, and usually this is in an effort to get more power, but it does actually quite the opposite. If we stand up on our downswing, watch what happens. My arms, they get further from the golf ball, and the only way I can hit the golf ball is by extending them and flipping my hands. It's the only way I can get to the golf ball. Whereas if I was to stay down, I can rotate and keep a bit of that bend in my right arm and really come down and hit the golf ball solid. So if you find yourself as you come down, you're standing up, the biggest problem you're going to have is you have to extend your arms to hit the golf ball. You're going to miss it altogether. And that involves a lot of timing and flipping issue of the hands to hit the golf ball, make any sort of solid contact. So that's in the downswing, and if you make sure you stick around to the end, I'm going to show you a really simple exercise you can do to help fix that problem. Now, the other issue with the hips and how they work in the golf swing is specifically also on the backswing and on the downswing is they move too far laterally towards and away from the target. So what I mean by that is, if I'm set up here on the backswing, a lot of golfers will have these hips go too far this way. You can see I've slid right off the ball. Or on the downswing, this is very common. See this left hip here, it'll slide this way too far this way towards the target. And what that does is, again, if I slide too far this way, you notice I get further, it tilts my upper body way back here, and again, I have to flip my arms to hit the golf ball. And conversely on the backswing, if I move too far this way, it just gets me further away from the ball. It makes it a lot more difficult to have to shift back and get in position there. So getting those hips to move the right way, to work the right way in the golf swing is critical to help the overall golf swing just get a lot more balanced so it can become a lot more consistent. So what we would ideally like to see happen, I'll show you this from a couple of different angles. Starting with the backswing, ideally what we'd like to see the hips do is rotate roughly about 45 degrees. Now this is going to depend on your flexibility, but if we can get them about 45 degrees, so if this is 0 degrees at present, but if I can rotate these at least 45, somewhere about there, that enables me to get a shoulder turn roughly about 90 degrees, which is what we want. So somewhere around that 45, if you can get that, roughly about there, means we can get that 90 turn. I've seen a number of videos in the last sort of few years with instructors saying to reduce the hip turn, but the problem with that is, and you can test that out with me right now, if you stand up, let me try to make a backswing without getting much hip turn. Let's see what happens. I mean, I can't, it takes a lot of strain. I can't literally turn any further. I think I've rotated maybe 20 degrees. I just can't turn any further without getting that hip turn, whereas I'm sort of stuck about there. If I turn my hips, look at that. I can turn and get my 90 degrees so much easier. So that backswing, just try to get that little bit of hip turn there, getting that to about 45 degrees, and it'll help you get a much better shoulder turn and just help the overall golf swing. So that's what I'll be looking for in that backswing. Now in the downswing, now the hips, I just want to clarify, I spoke earlier about getting too much lateral slide with the hips in the downswing. Now the hips do need to go a little bit laterally towards the target. I'm not suggesting on your downswing your hips go like this, that you don't move any distance at all. They do need to move a little bit towards the target, but it's only a small amount, probably anywhere from, I don't know, say 3 to 4 inches. So what I mean by that is, on our downswing, this is my left hip here, I do want it to move a little bit. So it's only sort of moving about this much laterally towards the target. And that's, you know, depending on your flexibility, your body shape, and your overall golf swing, you just want that little bit of movement closer towards the target. But what we don't want to see is this. We don't want to see the upper body tilting back, the hips moving like this. It'll cause a lot of injuries long term as well if you're continually doing this. Conversely, in that backswing, really sliding that way, it'll cause a lot of injuries later on in those hip joints and that pelvis area as well. So now in the downswing, the hips is another critical part I want to go through. So what I like to see happen with these hips is, we go to the top here, we've made our good turn. As we start that downswing, what we want to see happen is that you do like a little bit of a squat move. This is something famous made by Sam Snead. Tiger's been very famous for it. You want those hips to flex a little bit more, and we want a little bit more separation of the hips in the downswing. What I don't want to see happen, if you see that gap there, you don't want to see that gap narrow between your legs. And I spoke about this in an earlier video with a great drill, and I'll post that up above, on how you can maintain that bit of separation in your hips at the start of that downswing to really set you up for a good golf swing. So it looks something like this. We get to the top, you can see those legs separate, and then we can drop the club in like that. Now from down the line, now you can see we've got that hip 90 degree hip turn, separate, and then through. And that's a bit of a great visual for those hips and that downswing, to make sure you do get that separation, and then we want to rotate those hips through. Now that's the other part of the hips I want to talk about and how they work in the golf swing, is making sure that you get the rotation. It's really important as we're turning those hips open. It allows us to get that rotation. Same with the downswing. We get that separation there of the hips, then we rotate. Really important, it enables us to get that rotation as well, so we can really get into that great position on that downswing. So another great feel, if you're someone that is doing this too much lateral hip slide that I spoke about earlier, too much this way, a great, I guess, a visualization or a feel is in that downswing. When I talk about squatting, feel like those hips are relatively level, and that's a great way to do it. If anything, even feel like that lead hip is getting a fraction lower than the rear, and it will be a challenge. Kind of feel like your lead hip is getting a little bit lower, at least level. This with an alignment rod or a stick or something that goes in your belt buckle, and practice as you start your downswing of keeping it level and then rotating into impact, and that will help you stop you from doing too much of a hip slide this way, and also getting too much hip slide in that backswing as well. So final thing I want to talk about with the hips. Now as we make our downswing, it's really critical that those hips rotate open. Now from down the line, I'll show you this angle first. What we don't want the hips to do is stay relatively square at impact, because that's going to involve too much hands and arms to hit the golf ball. You want those hips, if we've done a good backswing, to open. You need them to opening up. We need the hips to get out of the way to give ourselves room to shallow the golf club and hit the ball solid. So really important on that downswing, you let those hips open. And that'll help us hit a lot more solid golf shots at impact. And finally, at the end of the golf swing, after we've hit the ball, we've squatted, we've opened up. As we go through, that belt buckle, and probably that left hip as well, even the rear hip as well, everything should be turning and facing towards the target. If you see yourself on video and you look anything like this, where your hips haven't even turned or they're still pointing out to the right here, it means you haven't rotated fully through to impact. What we want to see happen, want those hips, belt buckle, everything be pointing towards our target. That way we've made a really good turn, we've used our hips correctly in the golf swing. So another angle here, face onto the camera, it come through, you see my hips and everything pointing right down towards the camera. So that's a really important move to make sure you've done everything right. So if we go to the top, we come down, hips, everything towards our target, we've fully rotated, we've used our hips correctly, you've got a much better chance of hitting a consistent golf shots and a lot more quality golf shots as well. So give all those tips a try. If there are any questions or comments, please let me know, and that should help you use your hips correctly in golf swings so much better. Now, if you have any specific problem with your hips you're not sure about, post it down below and I'll do my best to help you out. Once again, please subscribe to the channel. Now, below the video, I'll have a couple of additional links. There's a free access to my special 3 secret moves golf video, so make sure you check that. That's 100% free. Thanks so much again for watching. I'll see you again soon.